All right, well, we are back, and as you can see, I have done quite a bit to this website. I've given it a style sheet, I've given it a menu, I've given it, here's our main area, and I've given it some asides, which are styled the same way. And we're going to go through all of what I added, but the first thing I want you to know is that the process of adding your CSS is not without its issues. So, for example, there are a lot of imperfections still in this website, and I'm going to show it to you. I am concentrating right now on getting all the main stuff workable, and then I'm going to work on the little things. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm in Dreamweaver here, and I'm going to go ahead and preview it in Firefox, and I'm going to point out to you all of the things that I want to change. Okay, first of all, when I started to add CSS, somehow I lost the centering on my website, so that's something I need to work on. That's on my list. Also, you can see that there are a few little things that are just not quite right. They're not quite lining up. And including this here, my main content, which has a scroll bar but doesn't need it. Probably I'm going to take that out. This needs to come down and hit the bottom. And these are actually asides. These are using the aside tag. And I have a little issue here where I need to make the bottoms match. Okay, so CSS is wonderful and it's awesome, but sometimes it just takes some tweaking to get it where you want to go, and that's just reality. So I want you to see something actually that is not working for me right now. Watch this. I'm going to go to my source code here. I'm going to go to code view, and I'm going to put in an H2 heading, or possibly an H3 heading. Let's see what I styled. I'm going to take a look at my style sheets here. As you can see, I have really added to the style sheets here. So I have an H2 heading and I have an H3 heading. So I'm going to use the H3 heading. Look at all the CSS that I've added. All of that CSS I have to go ahead and tweak in order for this to actually work. So I'm going to go ahead and add an H3 heading. And before, when I looked at my H3 heading, it was not working at all, which was very depressing and disappointing. So I'm going to talk about Jaguars. So I'm just going to call this Facts About Jaguars, H3. All right, now I'm going to save it. Now when I go to live view here, whoa, there's nothing there. Okay, so this is just an example of some of the frustrations and the interesting things that happen when we have CSS. Now, I have a pretty good explanation for this. Look at the color of this. Look at the color of this. Look at the color of this. Ladies and gentlemen, I made my H3 heading white. So that problem is going to be solved rather quickly because it was driving me crazy, but I went back and suddenly I saw, hey, I made H3 white. So let's go ahead and I'm going to actually put it instead of the H3 style. I'm going to go to source code here. I'm going to put it in the paragraph style, and that's going to fix my problem. So this is just one of those little things where it's like, why isn't that working? Why isn't that working? Well, the reason it's not working is because there's some little tiny thing that you have to pick through. There we go, Facts About Jaguars. And I think I'm going to, because I want to set it off, I'm going to use the strong element. Okay, all right, so that looks a little bit better, and it's not white. Hallelujah. Okay, so again, this has come a long, long way since we first started. I've added a navigation bar. I decided my logo was just way too cutesy and not sophisticated enough. So I came across this picture of a Jaguar, and in Photoshop I sized it to exactly 1024 pixels, the width of my wrapper. And here's another thing, guys. Keep a list. Keep a file of code that you can just plop in and customize to your taste. So there's no shame in that. You don't have to code everything from scratch. For example, I saved this. This is my style sheet for the menu. So when we looked at this website last time, the menu was just a list, and I have gone ahead and I just put that into the style sheet. So there it is, UL list item A, list item hover, and you know, the only thing I might want to change here, I probably will change the text. So for example, I'll change the font family, unordered list. Okay, now let's see if this works. Remember, we're looking for all the ways that CSS can play tricks on you. And lo and behold, it worked. Okay, so sometimes I was actually expecting that not to work, but that's okay. Now I took that code from code I had saved and I'm customizing it to fit my needs. So I also decided that my jungly color scheme was just kind of not very sophisticated. And I'm actually, honestly, I'm still not really sure about this, but I'm going to go with it anyway. All right, now I've added some content here, facts about Jaguars. So I added in the main content area, as you can see, I've added a bunch of information about Jaguars. And then over here, I've added 3 asides. So I want you to remember main is read by the search engines as the main content of a website, whereas an aside is read as something that's tangential to the website. So I put in 3 asides and I gave them a class. The class is callout, and here they are. So I have a little quote about Jaguars. I have a jaguar wrestling a crocodile, which I thought was fairly cool. And then I have another quote about Jaguars. And look, I have this little space that I need to tighten up here. We're going to get that done, but I'm going to get the basics in first. So I added 3 asides. Okay, now why did I choose main and aside? I could have easily chosen section and article, but on this page, I'm just going to look at it in live view. On this page, it made sense because all of the main content is just one, it's just one area, and the asides are definitely tangential to the main content. On my pictures page, I'm going to do it differently. All right, so here's my footer. Now let's look at how I've made this float. Again, this is still bothering me. Color scheme, I still might change it, but let's look at in CSS, how we made all this float correctly. All right, so I'm going to go to styles.css. And I certainly have added an awful lot. So here's our wrapper. At the last time we looked at it, it only had width and it had a margin of auto. Ooh, and I actually see that there's something I might need to change right here. Okay, so I wanted my wrapper, I just want my wrapper to have a margin of auto. Okay, so see, I am working with the CSS. I gave it a background color and I gave it a width of 1024 pixels. Now let's see if I'm going to go ahead and preview it. Save. Okay, so little things, once you start working with CSS, your site, you're going to go through some changes while you figure out, hey, wait a minute, did I do this right? Did I not do this right? And there's always something. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to preview it in Firefox. This is the best way to preview. I want to be able to preview in several major browsers. Go ahead and save those changes. Okay, so all I need is a margin of auto. That's what I want. Hey, look, it's fixed my problem down here. Now, I don't really need this scroll bar either. Okay, but actually I'm going to be systematic. We're going to get to that in a minute. So back to Dreamweaver. Okay, so we're going to look at our styles. So we have our wrapper, we have our background color, which we put in, margin of auto, and I don't really need margin top. I just need margin of auto. Remember, margin of auto centers your website, and mine was not centering. All right, save everything. Let's preview again. We do a lot of previewing in this. So I'm going to preview it in Chrome this time. Voila, it is centered. So you see, those are 2 CSS problems that I fixed just because, when you're coding, you sometimes mess up. And Then I gave it a day, it was driving me nuts, and I gave it a day's rest. And I said, okay, I'm going to come back to this. And then I looked at the CSS and thought, hey, wait a minute, I need to change this. And that is just part of the process. Don't let it become frustrated. Don't let it get you frustrated. So we had the wrapper tag, we've got our background color, margin of auto to center that website, and a width of 1024 pixels to keep it contained. All right, so that was here we have the body. Now remember, our three types of CSS declarations are set right here, using a tag or an element, redefining that tag. So that we don't have two body tags, so I used just the name of the element itself, body. Okay, and then we have an ID, which is denoted by the pound sign. That's something we only use once. We only have one wrapper. It has a background color, it has a margin of auto, and it has a width of 1024 pixels. And now we have a class. Now a class is something that I can use more than once, and I can use it for anything. So my class is called callout. And if you are paying close attention to my HTML here, I'm going to go to code view. My asides are linked to the class callout. So aside class equals callout. And when I go to my CSS, now I'm styling the callout. And I have three of them. So I worked on this a little bit. What I wanted for them is to have some padding. So in other words, I don't want the CSS to make my type hit the edge of the page. Padding is inside. Remember, margin is outside. So I gave it padding of 3% so that we would have some space inside the box. Gave it a background color, which I still might change, and I gave it a margin on the bottom, only on the bottom. I gave it a border on the top and a border on the bottom. Again, I still might change or tweak some of these. But let's look at what that does. So I'm going to go to live view a second. Okay, so here's my padding right here. Gave it padding of 3%, and I gave it a margin only on the bottom because I don't want a margin here on the top. I don't want any space in between the main content and my asides. Maybe I do want that later, I don't know, but right now I like the way they are sticking together. And I have this border, which I'm still not 100% on. I'm still not sure that I like it, especially because it kind of messes here. Okay, all right, but that is how I styled my asides. Now notice I don't have a float on those asides. I have a float on the main, but I don't have a float on the asides. And we'll get back to that in a little bit. We're just going to go through all the CSS right now. Okay, paragraph. Okay, so everything in my main content area is styled pretty much with the paragraph tag. So as you can see, I have a color, I have a font stack, I have a line height because I didn't want it to be exact line height. Remember, so this is 1.5 times the normal pixel, the normal size on of the typeface on screen. So here's my font size. I wanted it a little smaller than normal. My line height's a little bit greater than normal for a lighter look, and overflow Y is scroll. I'm looking at that right now and I'm thinking, I don't really need overflow here. I'm not going to add any more stuff. So I'm going to save that, and let's see what it does to our website. Not much. I must have overflow. Now, I may have duplicate tags in here. I need to look. Okay. So if not, that's just another thing I need to tweak. I have my H2, which is in our Google font, fall back to a sans serif. My H3, Google font, fall back to a sans serif. And now let's look at how I styled the main tag. Oh yes, it is as I suspected. I have a duplicate piece of information in there, overflow Y scrolls. Oh, I think we're going to take that out. But while we're at it, we're going to take this out. Okay, so now let's see what our, save that. Now we don't have that scroll, so I don't need a scroll bar. It's annoying, it's irritating. It's gone. Okay, back to the styles. Okay, so how did I style the main content? Okay, I gave it a width of 60%. So remember, in responsive design, we're working with percentages. We want everything to take up 100% of the screen width. In this case, it's going to be contained to 1024 pixels wide, and I gave it a margin right of 1%, which I don't know that I really need either, but I'm going to leave it in for now. I gave it some padding so that my type doesn't hit the edge of the box, and I floated it left. Okay, why am I not clearing this float? I'm not clearing this float because I want everything else to stack up next to it very neatly. Okay, I gave it a height of auto. I was experimenting a little earlier of giving it a height in pixels, but that's not responsive design. So I want to avoid the pixel measurement as much as I can because I want this to be able to shrink down to various screen sizes. And then just some basic stuff. I gave it a border top and bottom and a background color. Again, I might tweak this later. Okay, the image. Okay, now here I am again styling a tag, display block, margin left and margin right. Those three CSS declarations center my image, and it would definitely help here if I put a semicolon in. See, I'm debugging my code as I'm teaching you. Okay, now I have my unordered list. Okay, so I have my list items floating left, display inline block so that they squish down and become a nice, perfect menu, and we could add drop downs to this, and we might. And finally, I have my footer. Ooh, there's a problem here. Look at that bracket. That's not the right bracket. I need the curly bracket. Okay, so Dreamweaver, God bless it, sometimes it wants to code things for you. Now, some people like this and some people don't, and sometimes I find it irritating and sometimes I don't, but there. So there's our curly bracket, padding of 1% and a background color. All right, I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay, and I'm going to make sure that I have semicolons in there. And now let's see what our website looks like. Okay, so couple things so we have a couple of things that are not working in this website that I still have to fix. The number one thing is the disparity between the end of the box and this aside. I could fix that by making the asides a fixed width, for example. I could make them a percentage width, and my background color for my footer is just not showing up, and that's weird. All right, let's see if I did anything odd. Background color, I'm going to change. Yes, I did. Look, I've got a quotation mark on one side and not on the other. Oh, okay. Well, that makes it easy. Dreamweaver, of course, wants to give me this extra little bit of code there. Okay, now let's see if my background color has. No, it doesn't. Okay, so as you can see, there's a lot of debugging involved in a website. So the important thing, though, is that this style sheet can be used for anything. There's probably still stuff I need to look through and change, especially in the footer and that little disparity. But the most important thing is that I went through and after I coded it, every time I preview it in the browser and I say, okay, well, what do I need to change? And I always break it down in order of importance. Okay, what are the big problems that I have to fix right now, like something not floating correctly? What are the medium-sized problems? Like I would consider this a medium-sized problem. And what are the small problems? Okay, my footer background color is not showing up. That's a small problem. It's one I can fix, but on the hierarchy of importance, it's down there. Okay, so I have a menu, and now let's go to Jaguars Are Endangered. Let's preview it in the browser and preview it in Firefox again. And we can see, so this is our home page. When I go to Jaguars Are Endangered, you can see I have all of this. I don't have any content in here, nothing at all. Pictures of jaguars, resources. So my next thing, but the style sheet is applying to the entire website, even though I don't have content on there yet. And in the next video, what I'm going to be doing is adding content to this, and then we're going to go back and we're going to tweak the CSS again. Okay, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned from it. And I'm trying to keep it short, so I will be back at you with another video.